I've been getting a lot of questions recently about some basic practicalities of VAT, so I thought I would spend a few minutes to highlight some basics and also to throw in a few planning points. So, VAT in less than 5 minutes, it is plainly an impossibility to cover all the issues or go into any detail, so please bear in mind these limitations when listening to this week's soundbite. Get in touch if you have any questions. That is what we're here for. Let's start at the beginning with registration. You have to register if your turnover in the last 12 months was greater than £85,000, or you expect to have a turnover of £85,000 in the next 30 days. That would be fine, wouldn't it? Turnover is measured at each month end and is a rolling 12-month total. If you are in danger of exceeding the £85,000 threshold, you should do this calculation at each month end and calculate your 12-month rolling total. You can voluntarily register at any time as long as you are or intend to be making vatable supplies. On the other side, you must deregister if you cease trading, but you can deregister voluntarily and continue to trade if you expect your turnover in the next 12 months to be below £83,000. But be prepared to justify your expectation to HMRC. You need a good reason, for example, shutting down part of your business. VAT is not a simple tax, and just to make it more confusing, you can choose to have monthly, quarterly, or annual returns. You can also choose whether to account for VAT on the basis of receipts and payments, or alternatively, sales and purchase invoices. For example, farmers might prefer standard accounting based on sales and purchase invoices because they get their VAT back quicker. You've registered for VAT, but who is actually registered? This is more important than you think because VAT is only relevant for supplies made or received by the VAT registered person. So, if a partnership is VAT registered, supplies made by the partners as individuals are not subject to the VAT regime. Remember that if an individual is VAT registered, they must account for VAT on all their business supplies. And here we must mention the rules against business splitting, but more about that another time. When you register for VAT, you can go back and reclaim VAT incurred before registration. For equipment, you can go back 4 years, but services, which include building work, it's only 6 months. This is a big subject with a lot of complications, so I'm not going to say any more today. The flat rate scheme was brought in as a simplifying measure. In theory, it is simple. HMRC published a table of percentages. You apply the percentage that best fits your business to your total turnover, and that is what you pay HMRC. You cannot claim VAT back on purchases unless it's equipment costing £2,000 or more, including VAT. A new measure was brought in for people who have very few overheads to stop them benefiting unfairly from the flat rate scheme. And this is the limited cost trader regime. Their percentage is now 16.5% of gross takings. So if you ignore your motoring expenses, food and drink, etc., and your other expenditure is less than 2% of turnover, you must use 16.5% as your flat rate percentage. How does the registration process work in practice? Well, you've been calculating your rolling 12-month total, and you have now exceeded the VAT threshold at a month end. You broadly have a month to get registered and have to start accounting for VAT at the start of the next following month. So you get a month's grace where you've exceeded the VAT threshold but don't need to account for VAT. If you are registering voluntarily, you might want to consider backdating your registration by up to 4 years. You can then reclaim VAT on equipment bought in the previous 4 years, so that would be VAT reclaimed on equipment bought 8 years ago. I'm not going to go into any more detail about this, but get in touch if you want to try this. But remember, if you backdate your registration, you've got to account for VAT on all your sales. I thought it might be quite useful to continue this theme next week, but to look at what VAT registration can mean for a business. What records need to be kept? Will it put profits up or down? What strategies can you employ? How do you decide which options to take advantage of? Please remember, I've tried to cover the basics of VAT in under 5 minutes, and that means I've left out a lot of material. So get in touch if you have any questions. I'm Alan Long, the Long Partnership, making life less taxing.